Hello there and good evening everyone. I hope you all sudah buka puasa bagi our Muslim friends and viewers. Kalau sudah buka puasa or in the middle of it, good for you. Before Tarawih, let's have this happening. Good evening, my name is Bruce Lim and welcome to this new edition of the Growth Malaysia ReStart program. And today's topic is going to be very interesting. It's called resilient leadership, something that is close to the heart of one of my panelists here and probably being practiced by the two others. So without further ado, let's introduce our first speaker, Mr. Gopi Ganesalingam, who is the Vice President of Global Growth Acceleration at MDEC, which stands for Malaysia Digital Economy Corporation. Welcome to the program, Gopi.
Thank you very much, Dato. Thanks for having me on the program.
It's our pleasure and our honor. So those of you, please give some appreciation to Gopi. He's a very busy man working from home and he's going to start his post-MCO work life tomorrow. And if you appreciate him here, please do give a like or just press yes in the comment. Just press yes in the comment or share. We will appreciate that very, very much. Okay, then we have got the gentleman, all right, Mr. Liao. You're not supposed to be on the program. Can you leave, please? Right, and then next we have got Mr. Yeoh Chen Chow, who is, we call CC. He's the co-founder of Fave. Welcome.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Bruce. Yeah, I think honored to be here.
Great. If you like CC and if Fave is your favorite place to go to, if you want to look for food, right? Please give Chen Chow your love. Send Chen Chow your love or like or press share in the program, please, right? On Facebook. And last, we have got this pretty lass. Yeah, love. For Ms. Pennie Lim. She is the founder of Homa to You, which is a startup in Malaysia. We're going to hear about that story from Pennie, her own story. We're going to talk a little bit about storytelling as well, how to punch above your weight, through storytelling, especially something that Malaysian startup entrepreneurs should acquire or develop on. So thank you very much, my dear panelists. So let's start with a little introduction from everyone, so that people will be wondering why resilient leadership, why this mixed bag of panelists that I have invited to this program. So first is Mr. Gopi. He is currently the VP of GGA, Global Growth Acceleration. But prior to this, he has his world carved out for him. He was with multinationals, with Lucent Technologies, Nortel, and later on, he also founded his own company, Lava Protocols. That was a little more than 10 years ago, Gopi, I believe?
Yes, that's correct.
Right, so
11 years actually.
Right, time flies, and you haven't changed.
Yes.
So
yeah, for all those who don't know, Dr. Bruce was my client.
And right now, a friend, right? Personally on
yes.
Facebook and on LinkedIn. So,
yes.
So Lava Protocols was involved in introduction of Salesforce, which is currently, I think, the #1 CRM enabler and technology that we have. So I've had the privilege of using it, that very, very powerful tool. And that was before Mr. Gopi moved on to his role, his various roles in MDEC. Prior to this, you would know that since 2014, he was very, very involved in the GAIN program. And he has successfully done that. What is GAIN? Well, it's something that is good for some, and people who want to lose weight may not like to gain, but those who like to gain in terms of business growth, well, that's the place to be. And Gopi has essentially grown companies that are like 100 million, all right, in terms of value or sales, to more than 1 billion. And once you grow to that size, you've got to be a global player. So which leads him to his new role which has just taken over in February, not even a month, okay, or just over a month before the start of the MCO. So I hope I've done the introduction justice to you, Gopi.
Very well. I couldn't have done it better. Thank you.
Thank you. Combination of another startup, which is what do you call that? KFit, right? And prior to that, KFit was an amalgamation of Groupon and so on. But the best thing is after Fave was formed, Fave turned around, bought up Groupon, pivoted, and expanded into various other businesses.
And that was very, very touching for us. So we started getting that on board, and companies wanted to donate money. So we had a digital tabung set up immediately, and it's now reached over 300,000 ringgit. And this money is for the frontliners, not just the doctors and the nurses, but people in the canteen, people who are cleaning up. So that's the money for that. And that was the first few days of MCO. We were overwhelmed with industry support. We were overwhelmed with industry asking us questions. We were overwhelmed in how we were communicating from offline to online, from videos. On WhatsApp. So it was tough, but we managed it, and we worked almost 14, 15 hours a day the first few days just to stabilize the whole operation.
Right. You talked about stabilizing the operations. How is that? I mean, first of all, yeah, you've got stabilized operations and you've got a lot of engagements from your team members. How has that changed? You know, what were the messages that you get from the companies that you are taking care of under the Global Growth Acceleration Program?
I think the first, go ahead.
What were they asking? You know, were they seeking help? I know raising money is one thing, 300,000, that's well and good, but what were on their minds, you know, then? And how have you allayed their fears?
Yeah, so their fears were what's going on? Do we have, how long is this going to go on? A lot of them were ready. And, you know, we are fortunate, we deal with digital companies. So a lot of them are already online and a lot of things that we do. So the fears were cash flow. So startup companies that haven't raised money and are usually running 1 month, 2 months sort of a runway. So the immediate fear was, how do I get money? How do I fund my startup? What do I do? Do I come into office? How is MCO? What does essential services mean? What do non-essential services mean? Who comes to work? What are the processes? So we had to deal with those operational issues, which we dealt with, and we had to deal with it in a very conventional way, which was through WhatsApp, through video calls, through emails, right? And obviously we couldn't see anybody face to face, so everybody worked from their home. But we coordinated it pretty well, and we got it under control quite fast. So by the weekend, the first weekend came, which was 3 days after, we had it all under control. We had documents. We were able to guide the company and start working on certain initiatives. The first initiative we put, obviously, was funding. And within 3 to 4 days, MDEC Global Growth kind of put the first initiative, which was funding, where we connected with KK Fund of Singapore. And with KK Fund of Singapore, there were another 80 to 90 VCs. And we put them on an online, and we sent out initiatives to say, hey, startups in Malaysia, meet your match. If you are looking for raising money, if you're looking for funds, you're looking for investment, here, fill up this form. And, and we would let that run for 2 weeks. When we closed it on April 17th, we had almost 200 companies applying for 220 million US dollars worth of investments. It was an ask. So work's going on right now. We are now matching them now. It's called Meet Your Match Malaysia. And that was the very first initiative that took off from Global Growth.
Right.
But today we have over 40 initiatives that's gone offline to online. And so it'll take the whole night for us to talk about that. Right.
So seems to be a lot going on there. But again, the question right now, I mean, I'm reminded of the a quotation, a statement issued by Jack Ma of Alibaba. He says, right now, the year 2020, you can forget about growth. The mode that all, if not most companies should be on is on a survival survival mode. You know, if you survive, you have succeeded for 2020. How far of that is true, especially in your portfolio? I know I'm spending quite a lot of time with you, Gopi, but I just want to address that point. How far is that true? I mean, you are talking about acceleration, growth, you know, gain, and right now, post MCO, post COVID, we are all talking about survival. So, how much of that trajectory is still there?
So I cannot answer the question how much is still there. I think it's left to be seen, but I can tell you that every entrepreneur out there was reinventing himself. Every entrepreneur out there was pivoting his model. Every entrepreneur out there was looking at his customer and the problem again he was trying to solve. The problems changed. Some of the products that were addressing certain problems couldn't address the problem anymore because circumstances changed. Customer behavior has changed overnight. So a lot of these entrepreneurs were pivoting their model, and there were companies that when essential services was listed, they were non-essential. They pivoted their model so it became essential services. There were companies that were non-digital, little bit digital, became very digital. There were companies that required 80 to 100 people in the office at any given time, were operating with 5 people, 10 people, and everything went offline. So to answer your question, entrepreneurship was thriving, is still thriving in Malaysia, and people were pivoting. And this is not a Malaysian problem. This is not a KL problem. It's not an ASEAN problem. This is a global problem. Everyone was going through it. So, but it was amazing, and I thank my lucky stars to be sitting in the seat that I was sitting, to see so many entrepreneurs talking to you to pivot their model. And obviously, I had a lot of ideation that came through my mind as well. And it was amazing. A lot of them have pivoted. Of course, this is where we will see how we can differentiate the adults from the children. A lot of the adults will pivot, will collaborate, will strengthen, will raise money, will succeed. Some of the children may not. And this is where we're going to see that who succeeds and who doesn't.
Right.
And we've seen this in 1997. We've seen this in 2008. We're going to see it in 2020.
Right, but 2020 is a whole new game.
It is. It is a global. Yes, we're all in together.
Okay, so Chen Chow, you as Faith, you know, you are considered a sharing economy. So you survive, or your survival or death really depends on the merchants that are attached to you. Of course, you add some value. So can you just tell us, in this period of the MCO, who are the winners, who are the losers, the good, bad, and ugly of it all?
Yeah, I think good question, Dr. Bruce. Yeah, so I think at this period of time, right? So I think what Dr. Gopi mentioned a lot as well. I think the and when we say entrepreneurs, a lot of the SMEs are also a lot of entrepreneurs, right? Whether restaurant owners, retailers. I think some of them have been able to adapt very well. And let's say we take Tea Life, let's say Brian Liu, they all have came up with the bubble tea kit that people can do at home, whether My Burger Labs and all those things, right? So I think for us, is a lot of time is how do we facilitate, how do we be able to drive, right? So some of them are able to grow their business during this period. And of course, there are a lot that have their business went down close to zero, right? So I think it's adaptability. And then we also see different businesses optimize on different metrics, right? So I think when we say success is very different as well. So some of them is focused predominantly on minimize losses or just break even. Some of them is like, okay, let me just get enough cash flow so that I can last another day, right? So I think, and of course, there are some that with well capitalized, like this is the time to do marketing, to scale. And then what we see is the big shift this round is that adoption of technology, digital, among the big players came upon. Like businesses that previously were reluctant to go digital are now very embracing because they had no choice, right? I said previously we have been driving digital signatures to get all the contracts to digital signatures. Back then, I think we have a mixed success. I think the last 6-7 weeks is 100% digital because there's no way you can send physical signature anymore. So people are moving on it, right? So I think brands that previously we tried to knock on their door many times, they couldn't. Now they are knocking on our doors and say, how can we help them through this journey? So I think it's a lot of cross learning. I think how do we learn as well is, I think we jump, thanks to a lot of technology, globalization as well, we can jump on a lot of these kind of calls from China. Because China went through it first. So I think hearing what has changed in China, what has worked, what has not worked, what has transformed. And I think how do we transfer that knowledge I think let's say within the F&B groups as well, there's a Telegram group, there's a WhatsApp group, and a Telegram group has 1,000 F&B owners in it, where every day people are talking about it. And I think a lot of times is what we do, sometimes summarizing. I think so. Let's say example on like Friday when the Prime Minister announced the conditional MCO, and then after that Saturday, Sunday we have some states that have different states have different ways of doing it. So I think one of the things that we did was basically summarizing it with a simple table and said, okay, which state is what status? Which state restaurants can do dining? Which state you can open a retail? Which state the office is open? And whatnot. So basically summarizing that. I think during the period where there is the earliest stage as well, so I think the businesses that they face a lot of challenges, how do we enable connect them to Chamber of Commerce, connecting them to get a proposal to government? And I think MDEC helped a lot as well to driving everyone, right? So I think we're fortunate as a game company that the people up that I think get the chance to connect through. And I think eventually is how do we survive through this period? And I think survive and thrive, right? I think in the end, the winner will be the one that, let's say, when things back to normal, which companies will be strong in the new normal? Which part of the business will come back stronger? Which part of business may no longer be relevant? And I think it's keep on iterating, changing. I think, and we do the daily stand-up meeting as well as what Gopi did every morning. And we have been doing it for the last 7-8 weeks. And I think that if you give me a chance, maybe we won't go back to weekly business review. I will do daily business review right now, right? And things are moving and building through. And a lot of big companies that even MNCs and everything are willing to work with startups like us because I think that opens the door where previously we couldn't have.
Right. So you've just hold that thought over there about multinationals helping startups, and which are the guys that, because you did mention that COVID pandemic is actually pushing everybody into the deep end, right? And everyone has to either swim or sink. So I want to know who survived and who actually drowned. But before we go there, let's move on to Pennie. As a startup, how were you affected, supplying building and construction materials?
Number one, definitely is because most of the factory actually closed down, and the construction generally comes to zero except for those, I would say those hospitals or those essential construction is moving. So for the first few weeks was quite tough. It's not only us, it's generally entire industry. So we actually spoke to a lot of them, and we noticed that many of them don't really know how to publish or digitize their business. Whenever you say digitize, they were thought, oh, having a Facebook or a website is good enough to digitize the business. But you imagine that having a website, or if you just publish everything from the website, it's just like you're opening up a shop in forest. So we are glad that we have actually explore into this thing for about 2 to 3 years already. So we told them that in order to stay strong together, we need to build a community together. Talking about sales, it generally comes to zero already. You can't really work because a lot of Malaysian contractors, there are a lot of workers don't actually have a permit. So they also worry that if they don't have a permit, if they got caught, then it will be a very big issues. So what we actually did during the past few days is we keep on talking to them, and then we use our connection and we use our skill to actually generate a lot of leads. And then after that, we will pass it back to them and telling them that, okay, why don't you prepare this time to make yourself famous? So I'm glad that I have a few industry mentor that I've spoke to them, and they are very happy to do on a collaboration basis. I think during this kind of pandemic, right, a lot of time they are very negative in a way. So being a community builder, right, we need to keep on spreading those kind of positive energy to them by giving them hope and then by passing them leads. So this is part of the thing that we are doing. Don't hope on sales, because whatever sales that coming through is really bonus. Whatever sales that you didn't really materialize means it will materialize in a later stage, because what we are doing right now at the moment, although we are not really the first hand of the essential, but houses generally, you cannot say, okay, I built these houses halfway, then I don't build, I just abandon the projects. Or if you have already gotten a house already, you cannot be saying, okay, I don't move to the houses, I continue renting. So there are times that people are still doing the renovation, just that people are surveying at the moment. They are not buying. They might be paying a deposit, but they are not buying. But if you manage to capture this kind of crowd, eventually after the MCO lifted, you will be able to have a rebound of the sales and so on.
Right. So we all know that during this period of MCO and even after that, when things are different, cash is king. You as a startup, do you have enough reserve? Now that you're still burning through some of the money that you have raised.
Yes. In fact, we are lucky is because we started from a very traditional business. We are not really like startup that we use the burning way to sustain the business. In fact, for the first 2 years, we have been relying very much on the sales. Of course, before we really go digitizing, our company already making money. So we know that to really scale into this business, we cannot really to say keep on burning the money. So what we actually did is we used the offline store to sustain the business. And whatever extra money that we raised from the new round of investor, we used it to really go into the digitization part that we are building. That's why we are not really that hard being hit, but we actually have quite a long runway in compared to many startups that only have 1 to 2 months. So of course, with the government help of the soft loan, we managed to even extend our runway further. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That means you have a solid footing. You have got a stronger business model that depends on actually revenue generated from your clients even prior to this. Yes. So that puts you on a good state. But yes. Then again, back to Gopi. How many pennies do you see at MDEC, and and how many of them are still on the more recognizable startup mode of just raising money and then after that burning through it and try and survive to your next round of funding? How has that changed right now when you look at companies to develop and grow now that you have had the advantage of this MCO?
So this whole MCO has got global growth, the GGA, to pivot our model. So we pivoted, we shifted gears. The first thing that we did was to address the runway problem for startups and companies. So immediately we had the venture funds coming in. I spoke to you about the venture funds. We also partnered with ECF, equity crowdfunding, and we've encouraged our game companies, the well-to-do, high net individuals to invest into the ECF because we had a lot of companies. We've got 70 companies there in ECF now. Just startups going there to raise money. And then, of course, there are companies that, startups that don't want to give up equity, but they don't mind taking a debt. So we've also partnered with 4 P2P players, right? And we've got companies lined up for P2P borrowing. So it's fast, it's very quick. So that's also going through. And we're now working on our initiative, hopefully this week or next week, where we will work with another agency to see how we could do debt funding. And how companies could be able to apply and get debt within a month, right? So these are to address very unique startup problems, very unique tech company problems. So that is what we pivoted our model. We shifted gears. We addressed that first. Then we have also shifted gears. We are addressing accelerators, which is very much in need for startups. Accelerators are mentorship because now startups have to pivot. Now startups have got a new problem. And how do you do that? So we move that to an online platform as well, and just scaling that to other accelerators doing the same. So these are 2 quick ones that we put in place to address the short runway or to address the pivot the companies have to take at this juncture.
Right. Thank you, Gopi. That's pretty enlightening. But it's not as easy as that. You yourself mentioned in one of the articles that you shared over LinkedIn that COVID-19 is a battle of epic proportions. So we can't just look at every company as just saying, we have got to be a little bit choosy on which company will survive and which company won't. And Chen Chow, you also said earlier in the examples that there are some who are, among so many merchants, there are some that will emerge triumphant. They adopt digitalization faster. Is there a kind of a common theme, a common characteristic of winners that emerge out of this pandemic? Gopi.
Yes. So I would say it's resilience, right? And that's why I wrote about resilience. It's about resilient entrepreneur. It's about pivoting quick enough. It's about addressing solutions to problems that have arisen or problems that others don't see, but you have seen. You're coming in with a solution. There was a panel this morning with a insurtech company, a young insurtech company that raised today. It raised today during the COVID, during MCO. It raised 4.5 million ringgit. Last week, we had another company in our portfolio that did an M&A exercise all online. And we ran an M&A workshop last week. We have 72 companies that registered to do M&A. So you can see the characteristic is the entrepreneur. The characteristic is the entrepreneur who wants to pivot, who's hungry, who wants to move forward. And like I said in the article that you're alluding to, is the entrepreneur who's got his eyes set on his true north.
Right. Hold on to that thought, Chen Chow. You look like you want to say something.
Yeah, so I think that a lot of points I think really resonate, and I think that one of the things that I think we actually started like optimizing the cost since early Q4 last year. So I think from the startup world, I think since WeWork, I think starting to happen, where I think we were facing some challenges in Q3 last year. I think since early Q4 we started optimizing the cost. So I think one of the things is look hard on it, and I think we have been optimizing on, let's say, unnecessary marketing and on any aspects that we can optimize. So I think that was one of the first part that we went on. And I think as the COVID started happening, I think in March, I think we actually looked into every single line of costs and say which are necessary, which are just good to have, right? And I think a lot of it and a lot of time we just find inefficiency on things. So let's say some of the things that we maybe get the 100 accounts for some digital tools or SaaS tools. And we realize that we actually only use 92 tools, right? So we have 8 tools, 8 small accounts. Maybe each of them is $10 that we paid a month. But I think a lot of those things is how do we optimize through and reset and say, and I think like marketing, we'll say, okay, now instead of every month, we look at how much we spent last month, how much should we spend this month, and say, every month we start from zero budgeting again. So start from zero. How do you plan? What do you should add right now, right? Instead of saying last month you spent 20,000, this month you just spend the same or slightly less or slightly more, right? So I think we do that bit, and I think that taking the necessary pill as well. I think that let's say Joe and myself, we both take zero salary. I think our team went through pay cut as well at different level based on the proportions as well. I think it's just to really make sure that we can last through this winter, because we know that things will rebound. The question is how long, how deep, and which part of the business will rebound, how the economy will rebound. And I think that if we want to do well, and as the things go through, we can rebound strong, right? And I think the same thing with the businesses as well. I think that we have also done a few workshops with some of the business coach like Jonathan Quack to guide our merchants on how do you relook their business, how do you do pivoting, how do you look at business model canvas. So things that maybe some of the startups have been doing, but a lot of the traditional businesses owners, whether the beauty salons or maybe the F&B owners or offline retailers, they may not have heard of those. So how do you introduce things to them to relook, rethink, and bring on those things that it works in the offline world? How do you bring it on to the online world, right? So I think that's a part, and I think a lot of collaborations. I think a lot of thing is that, yes, how do you create win-win synergy? I think in this period of time, no one is too big, right? I think in the end is everyone needs to support each other. The problem is just way beyond any of us. I think the key is how can all of us work together to drive that, to support that. And I think getting more and more businesses go through. I think each day we see more merchants unfortunately couldn't last through. Like let's say just now, I saw like the morning after in their Facebook, one of the cafe just posted that they had to stop their operations. So I think each day that will be those kind of news. And I think that is how do we make sure that we all can handle through and go through, right? It's not going to be easy. It's going to be painful.
Right. It's not going to be easy. We hear of companies folding and all that. Gopi mentioned keep your eye on the north. You mentioned about how you're going to constantly reinvent, review until the economy bounce back. But the question is whether you'll be around when the economy bounces back. So what is really, really required in order to stay alive? You mentioned to review. Well, what kind of review are we talking about? Annual reviews, quarterly reviews, these are things that we used to hear. But right now, we are getting reviews more often. So now how does this actually work in real life? Pennie, do you have an idea of how do you do these reviews?
Of course, I believe that to really success in this kind of, not success, to sustain in this kind of pandemic, right, is really very much about teamwork. In fact, we don't really do a pay cut onto our staffing, but we actually do a deferment of payment. So those top management that above 4,000, we actually have a deferment of the salaries. And only until December, when the cash flow is back, we will actually pay a 5% interest back to their salary. So this is part that we can actually trust. I mean, also try to see whether they are actually in this boat together or not. Then to really sustain and review how we actually move forward is still very much onto how the teamwork and I would say the spirit, because for every goal or every direction that I've set, I have to make sure every one of them actually follow. So whatever things that we are reviewing is also, we did it on a weekly basis. On every Friday, we will come back and say, okay, the things that we have actually discussed last week, whether this is workable or not. If it's not, then what is the suggestion? So I believe that to really success is not about, okay, every KPI that's set in is whether is good or not, but it's very much about whether the team is following you or not and moving this together. And
Right.
of course, there are comments given. We as a top or as the head, we should always listen. Because in this kind of situation, we might think that, okay, we are always right, we have been doing the best for the company. But in this kind of situation, we might actually lost ourselves or lost our mind, to go and think about situation. But sometimes they are the one who is really in the battlefield. They could actually give us a better opinions or suggestion. Yeah.
Right. I like what you say about pay. You need to have a team with you if you want to run the distance, as they say, right? You want to have a team with you, and the best way to keep a team with you is to really got to make sure that everyone has their equitable take home, out of this.
Yes.
I'm sure none of us plan for all this, right? So how much of planning is required, and just take us through, how did you come up with this scheme? I know you have spoken to your captain and mentor. He has already announced similar measures. But again, everyone is talking about ideas, about staff retention, right? Ideas about innovation. And these all came out in a matter of weeks or even days. How did you, what's really required? Gopi, you mentioned keeping an eye on the North. How does the North look like?
So I think that's going to be very subjective to the business, to the leader, to the culture that the company has got, to the kind of pivoting that they are taking. And I think having your eyes on true north for anything you do, not just your business, anything you do, is very important, because a resilient leader, I got this inspiration by talking to many entrepreneurs, and me being an entrepreneur myself and going through crisis after crisis when building a business. So I think a resilient leader will never waver from their goal. Once you have it, and it's how you want to be a successful entrepreneur from there. So, when an entrepreneur is confronted by these sort of crises, and they will automatically, as PC said just now, they'll automatically say, okay, what are my non-critical functions? What is nice to have? What is good to have? What must I really have? I will focus on that, and then focus on pivoting, and focus on the market that you're going for, focus on the change that has to happen to make you move forward. And that is why I said, yes, have eyes on the true north.
Right. Very interesting. So we also talked about a form of leadership, and you did mention this, Gopi, on how you should be empathetic and compassionate. And we have seen how Pennie has demonstrated that in her engagement with her staff. Can you take us through, Chen Chow, about this pay it forward? Because it's really an initiative that looks after, they say if you want to look after someone, you've got to look after their pockets as well. How does this pay it forward come, when you talk about empathetic leadership?
So I think in terms of, we all want to lead with, I think, lead from the heart, right? So I think that's a key in terms of that. And I think one of the things that I personally use and I spoke to some of the folks as well is that I think decision making, I would divide into two parts, the logical part and the emotional part. Sometimes what decision to make, that has to be logical. Which part to spend, cut off, which part to invest more, the decision should be logical, right? But how do we execute? I think that's where the empathy came in, right? That's where all the parts of how do we do it come in. And I think the pay forward part as well, I think is also tied into that. I think one key motto that I use is that do upon others on how you want others to do upon you if you were in their shoes, right? So I think a lot of times when we are not sure what to do, how to do, how can we do the right things? And I think a lot of times in tough times, I think all of us go through different shape and form on this tough time. I think it pay it forward in the sense that I think help people with genuineness. And I think as we go through this, I think Pennie talked about it as well. I think at this point, making money is not the most important thing. I think that's when we did the Save Our Faith as well. When we want to save the favorite restaurant retailers, we announced that all the commission that we're going to make for e-cards from March 18 till end of May is completely 0%. We'll absorb all fees and go for it. We have supported more than 10 charity programs in the region, have different shape and form of name with different partners. Let's say in Malaysia, we work with Pertiwi Soup Kitchens, we work with Ahasan Volunteer Network, and I think NGO Hub, and different countries have different NGOs we work with. And I think each of those, I think it's all 100% donation goes up, right? And I think a lot of things is paid forward because in the end, if the whole more people can go through this, people don't have to go through hungry. Because I think if you think of Maslow hierarchy of needs, I think first is that people make sure they have something to eat, they have a place to go through, and then before you go through each level of that, right? And I think it's going to make sure that I think each of us can play our part, whether it's an individual, whether it's a team, whether it's a company, whether it's a community, or just a global citizen, right? I think it's just do it there and just lead with your heart and just do it.
That's great, Chen Chow. But then again, you talked about survival mode. Now it's a good time to have a heart. Pennie also talks about now it's a good time to be on survival mode. Just do promotion and so on. Prepare for the next when the sun rises. Okay, when the economy recovers. Gopi, now back to you. You are always very familiar with figures, 170% growth in terms of companies, right? And how has that changed right now under your portfolio? Are you still looking at 170% growth? Have you adjusted, your expectations or even the trajectory at MDEC?
So the trajectory will definitely be affected. How much we don't know yet. So we need to readjust for sure. The fact that there's going to be a travel restriction from our globalization initiative will also tell us that our global numbers are going to come down. Just to give you a feel, in the last 4 years, almost 60 companies through our program benefited with almost $1 billion worth of contracts. Now that obviously is not going to happen now that we can't travel. Whilst we moved that to an online initiative, how much of it will be realized, we're not sure. So can't answer how much will it go down, but it will go down for sure. It'll balance off with some of the companies that are getting tailwind, the companies that are in e-commerce, the companies that are in drone technology, the companies that are in payment. They are all having a tailwind on their businesses. So it's going to balance off somewhere, but definitely it's going to be coming down. How much? Not sure for now.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we are in the midst of a battle and we just don't want to look at the count yet. Things are still moving.
Yep.
But
yes,
one thing that's good, that's positive, that has emerged out of this is that this pandemic is global, right? So the cards are not only shuffled in Malaysia, the cards are shuffled everywhere,
globally.
Globally. And perhaps Malaysia has the added advantage, because we have already sort of flattened the curve, as they say, and we are emerging into a new normal. So what is there, now that the cards are shuffled, what is the advantage that Malaysian companies should have, should take advantage of? Any opportunities, and how are we able right now to punch above our weight and be a real global player? Gopi.
Sure. So there are a lot of companies that have become got global status now, right? You talk about in the finance side, you talk about GHL and IP88. They talk about Fave, which is a game company that just moved over to be a very strong regional player. Talk about drone company Aerodyne. They became the third largest drone services in the world. So we're getting a lot of companies that are going global. Vitrox, Pentamaster, all these companies are getting global recognition by Forbes. So we're going there. So of course, this whole thing that's happened, there's some adjustments that are going to take place. But if you ask me, one of the things that I'm passionate about Malaysia is our talent. I think they've got extremely good talent in entrepreneurship. They've got very good talent even coming out of universities. But what we don't do very well is to retain them. We can't retain them as well as we should. So we've got very good talent coming up. I think we are very well positioned in ASEAN, and ASEAN is a growing economy, one of the largest internet economies in the world. And we are right there. We are positioned in ASEAN. We have got, for a small country, we've got 4 to 5 airlines that are operating. So we're not sure how that's going to look like in the near future. But so what I'm trying to say is, I think Malaysia is very well positioned to take on a regional lead for one first prize, and then take on the global markets as well, because of its low cost base, because of the talent, because of the tenacity of entrepreneurship. In the US, you can have one product, you roll it out 50 states that have got one legal system, and they've got one way of doing things, and you're a unicorn. Here, our entrepreneurs, and Fave is sitting here, we've got Pennie here. Our entrepreneurs are regional champions. They have to navigate 16, 17 markets, 16, 17 stock exchange regulations, 16, 17 central banks to get to their position, and they've done it. So we've got extremely good talent. We need to bring that to global stage. The thing that we do very badly, and I really, really always profess that we should do better as a country, is our marketing. We do not tell our story very well. We do not sell ourselves very well. We do not sell the country well enough. And I think storytelling is where we lack big time.
Right. So what's your story, Faith? You seem to be a regional player as well.
Yeah, so I think for us, I think dream big and I think start small, right? So I think for us, our dream is to enable that any local offline businesses, right, enable to compete against any of the giants, right? And in terms, especially with digitalizations. So I think it's how do we level that playing field? So if you take restaurants, let's say McDonald's can do an ordering machine. How do we enable every single restaurant who want to order digitally to be able to do that with no capex? Starbucks can have the loyalty cards. How can any business have that? So I think of it like, let's say financing. The big companies can get the financing easily. How can any single local offline businesses do that? I think our goal is how do we empower the entrepreneurs, the offline entrepreneurs, they want to go digital. They have desire to do it, doesn't know how to do it. How do we enable them, many of them, to come on board and go on it, right? So I think that's the key. I think the key is how do we level the playing field, democratize that, the technology, democratize the ways to enable that, right? And I think, let's say example, FavePay. FavePay essentially is a loyalty service where it enables people to pay at a place and get a cashback back to the same place. And today, that technology permeates through 15,000 brands in Southeast Asia. Right? 15,000 companies have the loyalty. So if you think on it, if each company were to design their own loyalty cards or the loyalty app, how much?
Just got to reload.
Bruce, you're on mute.
Can you see me?
You're on mute. That's okay.
Oh, I'm on mute. All right.
I think it's having.
Okay, now much better. Right, just going to check the page whether we are still loading or not. Yep, we are still there. Seems to have hit a little bit of a blotchy patch of internet connection, but we are back right now with Chen Chow, and his story. Right, would you like to end or finish off from where you were talking just now? about enabling.
Yeah, I think I finished, but I'm not sure where it got cut off. But I think essentially is democratizing any technology. So think of it as if you're offline local businesses, you don't have a technology background, you want to digitize. I think our vision and dream is how do we help them to be able to digitize one service at a time, one aspect at a time, to go through full digitizations as they need, as they see value. And I think when you do digitization, the goal is not to make it look nice and cool. I think the goal is anything that we digitize has to make it easier, cheaper, better, faster for them. Right?
Okay.
So enable them to do something that they couldn't do without digital or technology. And that brings in real cost saving or real value added or real service to their customers.
So Fave's story is very clear. They want to help the small guys, to think and enable what the big guys are doing, right? Before I move on to Pennie, Gopi, I like what you mentioned about storytelling and marketing. So what are you doing, or what can a company, all right, whether it's a startup or whatever, or a gain or a company that wants to go big regionally or globally, what do they need to do to tell their story better, and what is MDEC doing, to let their story be heard?
So one of the things that we do in global growth is amplification. And amplification, if you have seen in the last few years, you see a lot of our Malaysian companies being amplified in news or in taking leading speaking roles, right? So we amplify. Taking a leading speaking role is also amplification, storytelling. Say if Chen Chow is on stage talking about something in very relevant to his marketplace in Asia, he's now seen as a thought leader, and that is about storytelling. So we do a lot of these storytelling initiatives. We are also now mentoring companies how to storytell. So one of the things that we do is we hire experts in our GAIN program to come and teach some of these companies to storytell. How do you tell a story in 1 minute? How do you say it in 30 seconds? How do you say it in 5 minutes? How do you say it in 30 minutes? So why do you say it? You say it for market access. You say something different for funding. So these are different ways of telling the story. For some, it comes naturally, but for a lot of us, it has to be taught. And unfortunately, you don't learn and sit for an exam and then you pass. You've got to practice. You put it into practice. So we've seen a lot of change in the portfolio companies that we've been dealing with. We see a lot of change. Now we are beginning to see companies that we are nurturing going to Japan, going to the US, and raising money and bringing the money back here, and then growing the companies from here. We've seen enough of them, and now we're scaling that out, right? And so these are all part of how you go and tell your story. And today, I think we have moved the needle in terms of storytelling, but there's a lot of improvement, a lot more work has to be done.
Right. I know we are a little short of time, but that was a short period where we got cut off. So I'm just trying to make up for that. Gopi, right now there's this MCO, right? And we can't have our companies traveling around the world to tell the story, right? So what is the Malaysian narrative? What is the Malaysian story that is going to be so different, so unique from the others? You mentioned something about talent, right? But as an individual company, right? What is the, as a Malaysian, what are the uniqueness that we have in terms of our narrative, number one, and number two, how are we going to start amplifying that story right now with curbs on travel and meetings? How do you see that panning out?
So fortunately, fortunately, can you imagine this COVID thing happening and MCO happening, and we didn't have a digital economy? What would have happened? It would have been tough. So fortunately, we have the digital economy, right? And now we've got tailwind on the digital economy. Everyone's going towards the digital economy, and we have tailwind because ASEAN is the superpower in the internet economy. It's the uprising internet economy, and Malaysia sits there. And I think that is the story we need to tell. Malaysia has got this talented set of entrepreneurs. They've got this talent coming out of Malaysia. Malaysia is the heart of digital ASEAN. It's our tagline for 2020. Malaysia is the Malaysia is the digital. So sorry, I got it wrong. So Malaysia is the. Oh God, how can I forget this? Anyway, so we are now talking about Malaysia to be the centerpiece in ASEAN, where everyone, we are asking FDIs to come into ASEAN, come to Malaysia. We want regional headquarters to be set up in Malaysia so that they can service Asia from here. So Malaysia, heart of digital ASEAN is what I was trying to say, and it's just come back to me. So Malaysia, heart of digital ASEAN is our tagline for 2020.
Right. So these are for companies that want to grow on a global scale. Pennie, do you have such dreams?
I do. In fact, we noticed that whenever there are construction, definitely they will have a lot of leftover. So we have always wanted to move into a platform kind of model, especially during this pandemic. I believe that a lot of countries actually start with old stocks. Not only construction companies, there are lots of factories. They will have this kind of stocks. So in fact, we do have some of the suppliers coming from Vietnam's or like Indonesia's, and China is contacting us. So unfortunately, we are not ready for that yet, but definitely it shows a very good potential. And being like what Gopi said, Malaysia being an Asian hub, I think definitely we need to move towards the entire connecting the dots by providing the entire supply chain, not only on digitization, but also the fulfillment part, which we can actually connect towards the rest of the world. So yes.
So yeah, Malaysia, heart of digital ASEAN. Let's remember that, including me.
Great.
Yes.
So yes, I'll come back to it. So just to sort of wrap up, I've got two more very, very quick points to. But before that, I just want to wrap our discussion right now. We have got Malaysian companies that want to survive. You need to have resilient leadership, as we mentioned, and that means, as Chen Chow said, we have got to have speed. We got to decide very, very quickly, reinvent and pivot, constantly innovating. Gopi, you said, whilst at all times keeping an eye on the north, and whilst doing it, whilst implementing and executing it, you must have be compassionate. And on top of that, that's something we didn't touch upon that Gopi mentioned in this article: physical health as well as mental health. Right now, we need the company's health, and for company's health to take place, you need some form of money to go on, and everyone says during this period, cash is king. Do you think our Malaysian companies, with this wealth of talent, right, those that demonstrate resilient leadership, is there enough money to take them to the next rebound? Because we don't hear startups being mentioned in the pre-Hatin economic stimulus, the 260 billion, including the 10 billion for SMEs. How are these startups and all these companies that thrive on innovation in a very short period of time are able to access any form of funding or any form of assistance, given that they do not have that 3-year history, 2 years of audited accounts to show the traditional banks? And I would just want to address that to Gopi.
Sure, and that's why. So the tech companies, and that's why MDEC, one of the first things we did was to address the funding, was to address the runway, and like I said earlier, so what MDEC has done and what Global Growth within MDEC has done is to introduce the VC funding, which is very, very important. The good news is there is money in the system. There is money here. There's money globally. People are holding on to money, but it is a buyer's market today, right? So the VCs are also looking at who's desperate, how desperate. Unfortunately, that's the case. And so what we have done is we have put platforms in place to address funding. One is the VC funding, we are addressing it. ECF, we are addressing it. P2P, we are addressing it. And it's running, and we are getting companies already talking to the potential funders. And we've opened the lines up till 21st of May of this month. We are hoping that more companies will take advantage of the platforms that we're providing. There is money in the system. It's who get what. It's going to be a buyer's market. So I would urge entrepreneurs not to hold on to their valuation pre-COVID. I would urge entrepreneurs to start collaborating, start partnering, don't recreate the wheel. If there is another company that's doing it, partner, collaborate. If you have the money, buy over. These are the times M&A activities are going to happen. These are the times a lot more collaboration is going to happen. These are the times competitors will work together to take on the market. These are the times you will see the fittest survive. And so the question would be, as an entrepreneur, as a businessman, are you fit enough to run this game? Are you going to bring your best game to the best shot to the game? And I think that has to be answered. So to sum it up, there is enough money in the system. We've got the initiatives, we've got the platforms out there to connect you to the money, but it's going to be a buyer's market. Over to you, Bruce.
Right. So you talked about survival of the fittest. Chen Chow, are you there?
Yes.
Yeah. Chen Chow, what are your views? I mean, Fave has gone through a Series B, I think, almost 2 years ago. What are your views? You know, right now, has the as what Gopi says, the feel out there, you know, among VCs and fund managers, have they changed? And what are their appetites right now? What would they look at, you know, before they give you the funding? And in fact, Growth Malaysia, when it was established in March last year, you did bring in banks. Are banks quick enough, you know, to adopt fintech and this alternative financing, if you want to call it? What are your views?
Yeah. So I think that with this COVID shift, right, in the last 6 weeks, 7 weeks, I think that is a huge change. And I think that the VCs, I think what Gopi mentioned is that a lot of them have money. I think what they are now looking at is that where to invest and which entrepreneurs, which startups actually can thrive in this and not just survive in this, right? Which is the new norm they're going to be created in this. What would be the tailwind? I think what Gopi brought up earlier as well, right? I think that what would be the tailwind they're going to go through? Like, let's say things that are going to be a lot more utilized. So let's say example on the digital payments, cashless payments. When all of us go back to spend again, would we use cash again? Or would we just use all form digital? Right? I think that could be the huge tailwind that bring everyone that does cashless payment, contactless payment to the next level. Right? Like myself, I actually haven't stepped out of my house for 49 days. I have actually not touched cash for 7 weeks. And I actually don't know when will be the next time I will use cash, right? And I think that's sort of a spur and shift that I think would drive it. And of course, I think that the investor has choice. I think they will select which one. And I think for us is to survive through, last through, and I think build up stronger as we come in. And I think maybe I will use a couple. Reid Hoffman from LinkedIn, the founder of LinkedIn, gave a talk recently. I think the way his advice was, I think, for entrepreneurs to think of which part of your business or which part of your market will rebound faster, will rebound bigger, and will be the bigger parts of it. And how do we plan, to capture that? I think we've now partial conditional MCO, and next week, if there is a full lift off, how do we be able to be in place to drive that, right? And I think Jack Ma said, today is tough, tomorrow is tougher, the day after tomorrow is beautiful.
Right.
Very nice.
Well said. Very well said. I like that. And Pennie, how have you changed? And how are you going to change now, moving forward, until that beautiful day arrives?
We definitely, talking about change, we definitely wanted to focus on more products. We no longer just focusing on one particular segment. In fact, we have came out with, after the discussion with my mentor, my captain, we actually came out with 4 different kind of diversification. So I think this is where it will keep us moving. You know, number 1 would be the risk diversification. Of course, don't focus on one particular thing. You need to look into other alternative as well. And then we also look into geographical diversification. We are trying to not only in the next 1 to 2 years, we are not going to only think about, Malaysia. In fact, we are looking into Singapore and other neighboring countries also. And of course, being a building materials or home improvement products, it may not help us to survive another recession. You know, we are lucky that we managed to pull through this round, but we may not be able to pull through the other one. So in that way, in fact, we are in our company, we are looking into going into total fulfillment services as well, which we are currently doing a very small one, but we are looking into a bigger one so that we can actually provide, you know, besides the digitization, we also provide the full fulfillment, which will eventually connect the entire dot to the entire market. So these are the three things that we are currently doing at the moment. Of course, the digitization, diversification, we already done it like 2 years ago. So this three factor is the one that will make pull us forwards before we reach the beautiful day.
Okay, great. So you've got your ecosystems, right? How long you think that beautiful day will last? You did mention that, thank goodness we managed to survive this round, but we are still in the midst of the battle, right? So with the unseen enemy, they say. When do you think this thing will come to an end? Is it a V rebound, or is it W or U? What are your thoughts? How far is that beautiful day?
I would say a lot of people might be looking at next year for construction. There will be a lot of people may be thinking, okay, this year construction will not be moving, but in our sector is a bit different. It's because whatever that you're going to harvest this year or next year is what you have already planted 2 years ago. And I believe that in the industry that we are doing, we are very much controlling the heart of the economy. And I believe that with a lot of support from the government for the mega projects, eventually you will not be seeing a very stagnant growth, but I will say the jockey stick will be the growth that we are looking at.
Right. Thank you very much. We're going to come to the end. Just a very quick one. Chen Chow, what is your advice for budding entrepreneurs out there to face the future?
Yeah. So I think still Gopi's line. I think of your true north, and basically I think just focus. And I think just focus on the problem that you try to solve. Help someone solve their problem. Help someone achieve their dreams. Make it easier, cheaper, better, faster, and be resilient. And you will go through it.
Thank you, Chen Chow. And Gopi, final parting words.
Final parting words. So I think my parting words to the entrepreneurs, and I know, and I have an entrepreneur DNA in me, is don't give up, be resilient, pivot. Remember, there are a lot of companies that were born because of a crisis. If you look at Google, if you look at Yahoo, and then you look at later, you look at WhatsApp. Then later, even closer to home, you look at the e-hailing app that came out, the e-commerce platforms that came out. Closer even to home, Fave, IPADA, GHL. All these companies were born because via a crisis, and they pivoted. So my advice to the entrepreneurs out there, the startups, don't give up. Believe in yourself. Pivot a model. Believe in the model. Story tell very well. Be confident. Go and get the money and build your business.
Thank you so much. I think Gopi, you have very nicely summarized the entire discussion. It's almost an hour and a half right now that we are together. Time flies when you're having fun. So, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Gopi, he has always said that he wanted to be the moderator, and looks like he has done that job towards the end. So we have it. Thank you so much, Mr. Gopi from MDEC, Chen Chow from Fave, and of course, Ms. Pennie Lim from Homa. It's been a pleasure hosting you on Facebook Live. Thank you very, very much. And for the rest of you, I wish you very best. Do whatever these three experts have just said. I'm not going to repeat that. So just be resilient and stay safe. And I wish you all the best as you move forward in the new normal. Remember, there's always opportunity, a silver lining behind dark clouds. So keep surviving, and I'll see you at the other side on more beautiful days when the sun comes out. Thank you. Stay safe.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Thanks
very much. Good night.